Alright, let's talk about the Shonen Jump issue from November 26th. The first chapter this week was The Promised Neverland 113, which had a neat cover image of the various kids all suited up in war gear. But what was interesting is that Norman was with them in the image. He was not in war gear. I don't know if that's suggesting that maybe he may come into the story again at some point soon. I'm not sure. But when the story itself gets started, we see that at this point it's October of 2047, and or at least this thing happened in October of 2047, and there are a group of adults that are raiding a farm, just killing demons left and right, and they're singing while doing it, which was unexpected, a little dissonant. um, the group is made of there's a lady who has a spiked club, a guy with nunchucks, a guy with a bag on his head who has two very big swords, and a guy with a napkin. I'm not sure what he's doing. Um, but he's there and he has a napkin. And the lady says that once they're all done, she wants to eat the demons because she says it pisses her off that in this conflict humans are the only ones who get eaten. I don't know if demons are even properly digestible, but I mean, if they are, then I guess I don't see why not. But the other guys, they all agree. Or Baghead, he mumbles, and I assume he's agreeing when he mumbles. But the guy with the napkin says, well, he feels the same. He thinks that they should use more civil language, such as mentioning that they have righteous indignation. So I like this guy already. He seems fun. But it eventually turns out he's are working with Minerva himself. And so they've apparently been going around to various farms, killing the demons who run them, and rescuing all of the children being raised there. But unfortunately, this particular farm uh, is a mass production farm that is to the point where the humans are all growing on life support. They're attached to machines and they grow that way, they die that way. And so Minerva says it's unfortunate they can't free them, but he does take a moment to hug one of them, which was nice. And then he has them burn the whole farm down, kind of, I guess, releasing them from their tortured existence. Um, and as they leave, he says that he will destroy all of the farms and he'll rescue all the children, and then he shall create a paradise in its place. And he actually walks out into some wherever area is his home base, and there's this huge crowd of people all chanting Minerva, Minerva, which means that he must have been doing this for a while. So clearly his outlook has changed, as I suspected, because he wasn't this militaristic sounding before. But it seemed to be working well for him. And the back little portion of the chapter has the main characters decoding the message they got. Uh, the numbers in the message they got on the phone, and they recognize that the numbers are coded in the same way that the numbers that they were following uh, earlier on in the story when they were escaping the farm and when they found the shelter was the numbers refer to page, line, and word in the book that Mr. Minerva put out. So so they decode it, and the numbers say go to the jaw of lion. So one of the kids remembers that, hey, one of the maps in the shelter had an area on it that looked kind of like a lion's mouth, so they assume that's where they're going to go to. It's about a 10-day walk to the west of where they are. So they all head out, and we see actually that they made a little grave marker for Lucas and Hugo and the other several people who died recently. So, yeah, Mr. Minerva's active in the story now. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'm assuming that he and all of those people he rescued are at the lion's jaw. already. 925, in which we find out that Gecko Moria is still alive. We haven't seen him, I don't think, since right before the time skip, in which it was unclear because Doflamingo had just beaten him up. But yeah, he's still alive. He's made the news. And Perona, the lady who used to be in his crew but is living with Mihawk for a couple years, she's overjoyed. So she tells Mihawk she's going to go. She's going to rejoin as captain. He wishes her well and says that this might be a good time for her to go because something's come up at the Reverie and his island may not be a safe place for too long. So we cut over to Moria, who has been attacking one of the islands where Blackbeard and his various ship captains hang out. And we find out that several of Blackbeard's captains are there, one of whom taunts Moria by using her nine-tailed fox powers to shapeshift into Absalom, that invisible lion guy, acting as if he's overjoyed to be reunited with his captain, when in fact they quickly reveal that no, actually, we killed him. You can have his body if you want. You can make a zombie out of it. And the invisibility fruit is now in the possession of Shiryu of the Rain, that guy who was in charge of Impel Down before Magellan took over. And but as if all of these people aren't bad enough, a shapeshifting person and Shiryu of the Rain, and what the other captain was, I already don't remember what he was. He just kind of was there to say, "Oh, Gecko Moria is here." Blackbeard is also there. He's, I guess, using a megaphone or something from a little area he's in an island, and he tells Moria that it was be in his best interest to join him as an underling, because, as he says, it's a dangerous world right now, with what's going on in Wano, and the Revolutionary Army having just attacked the Reverie, and having apparently fought the Navy admirals, so that's what's been going on at the Reverie. So he says it'd be wise for him to fall under the employ of one of the emperors. And Otama is worried about Luffy because he got captured, but the rest of the Straw Hats really aren't that concerned. They're like, "Oh, he'll be fine. We're gonna go and rescue him, and he can definitely last until then." Um, it's not like they're gonna break his spirit down. Yeah, he's more motivated than that, which is true, judging by, again, the whole glaring even while he's passed out thing. But something more problematic is going on than just finding Luffy, which again seems like it'll be an easy thing, is Kinemon is trying to rally the various Kozuki samurai. And it turns out that, hey, after 20 years, not all of them are as enthusiastic about fighting for the cause anymore. So Ashura Doji flat out refuses to help. So they might not have as much firepower to attack the Shogun and Kaido with as they originally thought. Speaking of Kaido, the chapter ends as we meet two more of his big underlings, King and Queen, who Jack refers to as his brothers. Now that could be a literal thing, or it could be just the way that sometimes Japanese people refer to people as siblings. I'm not sure, but so that's the chapter. The comic chapter 7, which is the finale, was in this issue. And so we find out that Himekawa has been basically manipulated, controlled for a long time by a little chip that was inserted in him. That's what allowed him to be electrocuted at the end of the last chapter. And in fact, it's revealed. We kind of find this out all at once that Himekawa was a pen name based on the putting together pieces of the names of four girls who were members of the Pumpkin Club with him and with Mr. Baba. And then when Himekawa, or what his name actually was was Yoshio Sato. So Sato and Baba did end up going into drawing manga together, but one of the members of the club, one of the girls, was kinda loony and very yandere-ish, so she had the chip implanted in him after he just so happened to get in a car accident. So she had a chip implanted in him while he was at the hospital, and since then he'd kind of been her manga drawing slave puppet thing. So I'm not sure what Ryota meant at the end of the last chapter then when he said uh, that Himekawa died. Maybe he just meant that he was not really operating under his free will. Controlled Mr. Sato still tried to run away with one of the other girls from the club who he had fallen in love with, and so crazy giant lady, found out, and so she used the chip to force him to push her off of to push her down that long height and die, and then they framed Mr. Baba for it since he didn't have a chip. So that would tie up all the loose ends. The detective, it appears that uh, Mr. Sat Mr. Sato, after waking up in the hospital, now that he was de-chipped while he was in there, he explained everything. And so Crazy Lady is taken away, and Mr. Baba is released from jail. Sato thanks Ryota very much for sticking his nose into what was going on because now he's finally free. And Mr. Baba seemingly joins Ryota full time as his assistant. I'm assuming that Mr. Sato isn't drawing manga anymore because, as much as it seems like he enjoyed the drawing manga was something he wanted to do after being mind controlled and forced to do it. I imagine that you lose the drive to do it, and it would probably have a lot of bad memories associated with it. So yeah, that was the comic. Um, the story had an interesting concept, I think, but I feel like the execution could have been better. Um, like, I think that if there's going to be a mystery story, right, it would have been cool if it was stretched out for a little longer and there were clues that were dropped instead of how it ended up uh, being made. Basically, everything that we learn is because the protagonist figures it out, and so there's no time for the readers to guess at things. Um, and I get that in most shonen series, uh, there aren't hints towards everything. A lot of things just kind of come out of nowhere. But I just feel like for a story that was focused around a murder plot, it might have been nice if they tried to go a bit more in the traditional mystery approach. But it's nice to read something by Takahashi again after uh, after a while, because it has been a while since I've read one. I'm sure he's been keeping busy, but none of it has caught my attention until it was in Shonen Jump just now. So next up was World Trigger number 169, in which it's revealed that Suzunari's squad planned the whole thing as part of their strategy. Um, so their operator would be ready, and in fact, apparently had been keeping time along with the agent who was going to find the light switch and turn them off, so that she would be able to turn on night vision for the agents at the exact same time the lights went off, so that they would be fine, but distracted and it would give Susanari an edge. And so just when Kageura's squad had their night vision shifted on by their operator, then the lights turn on again in perfect timing, so that they're blinded again. And so Captain Kageura, so that's what the sharp-toothed guy was. That's who he was. I hadn't remembered. Now he's blinded in the opposite manner, and he takes a blow in the arm, and so now he's leaking Tryon. The announcers say that, oh, if he didn't have that combat clairvoyance of his, then he would have been out of the match already. But each time, even if his eyes are having a hard time seeing, he can still kind of feel his way through the fight and avoid fatal blows. To take out the fuse box, but it turns out that that was planned for as well because there's a shield that's been set up in the way. And so Kageura Squad's gunner decides to take out the light fixtures in the area where they are so that no matter whether lights are turned on or off, they will be fine. Because it'll be permanently in the dark. And so the last bit of the chapter does focus on Tamakoma. Humo managed to get away after losing his arm. And meanwhile, Tamakoma's neighbor duo have joined up and are now about to attack the guy at the fuse box so that he can't keep doing that anymore. But the chapter ends before they can strike, and there's a little note that says that, okay, from now on this will be a monthly series. If that's going to help the author's health, then I'm absolutely all for it. Yeah, 2 years of a hiatus was a bit of a scare. 29 was the next chapter, and so Kachin Koji made it into Konoha, despite the fact that there was supposed to be a sensory barrier that would alert people if anyone with unfamiliar chakra got in. I'm just assuming that he'd been there at some point before. That's the easiest explanation. But we're going to have to see. So at the Uzumaki household, Naruto tells Boruto that he wants to spar, and Boruto, who I noticed was playing a Nintendo Switch, and he puts it down and he says, "Oh yeah, sure. That's something we don't get to do very often." So Kawaki tags along to see if while Boruto fights, his karma might activate again, and they could learn more about it. And Himawari also comes along to cheer on her big brother. The fight's pretty darn short, but Naruto suggests that he can tell Boruto has gotten stronger. Partway through the fight, Kawaki activates Karma by himself, which causes Boruto's to resonate and activate so that they can see what it's all about. And yeah, it seems like, at least at the moment, it's pretty basic stuff. It makes Boruto faster and stronger, and it makes his jutsus more powerful. But Naruto is still way beyond Boruto's level at this point, so he still wins. But like I said, he does say, "Oh, you've improved," and we do this little handshake with their fingers, which apparently is something that ninja do after sparring matches. I don't think that was a thing that was featured in the story before, but I guess that's a thing now anyway. And Himawari explains to Kawaki, who's confused, that, oh yeah, it's this little thing, it's a show of respect. And he can't help but recall that when he was being trained, quote unquote, all that he got was threats about, hey, if you can't keep going and perform adequately and master karma, then you're worthless and we're going to kill you. So, yeah. Um, he's been through some stuff. But a while later, Kawaki is in Naruto's office while he works, because Naruto's still keeping an eye on him. And he mentions that it seems like he and Boruto are having fun, and Naruto says, oh yeah, it is fun. And he suggests that, hey, you should try it sometime, and Kawaki says, I can't manipulate chakra, I just have the karma thing. But Naruto says, well, everyone has it. It's, as he puts it, he sees it as a binding force between people, which I'm not sure is the realistic the correct definition of it in the story, but um, at any rate, Kwaki says, "Well, I might like to learn about it. Uh, the doppelganger thing seems like something that'd be neat." Um, although he says that the reason he'd like to do it is so he can make a clone and and fight himself if he's feeling stressed, and so he can work it out. Bernardo says, "No, that doesn't work. I have actually tried it. It's always better to spar with a friend because having friends is always a good thing. You know, friendship can change the world. He can personally attest to that. Which, yeah. Um, so the chapter ends with Kawaki deciding that he's going to glue that broken vase together, which is cool. But the chapter right before it ends, though, we see that Koji has spotted him using some kind of uh, spine toad thing that he had with him. So he knows where Kawaki is. He thinks there might be an attack on the Uzumaki household soon. And the next up was Hunter x Hunter 390, and we find out that not only did that guy who already had a coin, not only did the number go up to 10 on his coin, but it's already 10 on the coin of the guy who just got one. So it appears that numbers increase in unison across all coins. And the prince, Zhang Lei, thinks to himself that while he knows that a coin is dropped every day, um, he doubts that they would be of any use to him. He says that since there's only one a day, he doubts that they'd ever make good currency. But hey, maybe once I'm king, I can give them to people as a medal or something. Although he does assume that think to himself that okay, but this is related to Nen, so these coins must have some special aspect about them. But his best guess is that uh, just as how he spends most of his time planning about how things will be once he's king instead of planning on how to get there, he thinks that maybe his Nen Beast and the coins will be more useful once he's attained the throne. So he goes and decides, well, I should do some work on figuring out how I'm gonna win the succession battle. So he goes to see the boss of the GU mafia family. I forgot that there were criminal organizations on the ship because there's a lot going on and gaps in the story. But uh, apparently this boss guy was actually his half uncle, which I don't think I ever knew. And he tells him that he remembers that the king won his own succession battle um, using a relatively cautious strategy, waiting it out. But he says he'll look into things and let Zhang Lei know so that it can better his own chances of winning. Well, before he does that, he gives a bunch of orders to his people regarding how to deal with various other crime families and finding Hisoka aboard the ship. And a bit later, actually, there's a skirmish between members of a couple different organizations right in the middle of a food court. One of them, his Nen ability is that he can manipulate his blood if it's outside of his body. And so, to ensure that he has a steady supply of ammo, I guess you could call it, he always has IVs with him, and that also conveniently makes it so that if he takes them out, then he can get the blood outside of his body really easily. Um, there's also a chick who can, if she punches you, uh, reveal the answer to any question. So she'll ask a question, then she'll hit you, and then a voice will erupt from the place where she hit you, answering the question, which is kind of funny. And the last person whose Nen ability we see in this chapter basically has, to put it in JoJo terms, a golden experience. This person uh, turns the guns of the watching military members, who are guarding the food court, uh, into snakes, which rear up and apparently still have gun abilities. So they're like snake guns, I guess. And so they kill the military people by firing off blasts from their mouths. Um, it was weird. But that's going to be the last Hunter x Hunter thing they'll have to say for a while because the story is going hiatus again. It's not surprising anymore because it keeps happening. So I guess we're going to have to wait until the author feels up to making more again. I'm not sure what the deal with this is. Um, I haven't looked that much into it, so maybe he has health problems or something. But at this rate, I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's just that he gets writer's block for months at a time. So I don't know, but whenever it comes back, then I guess I'll see how much of the story I remember by that point. Chapter 183 is next, and Yami he's just delighted to see his squad show up. It's actually really sweet. Although he's also cracking up at the fact that they appeared riding a giant, bull building Zord thing. Noelle tells him that they took long enough, but she's actually very happy to see them. And as Brownie points, Asta thinks that her armor looks really cool, so I'm sure she was over the moon in her head about that. And so all the various elf mooks charge at them, but since they got basically all the black bulls together now, they're no chance. They don't stand a chance because the black bulls work really well together. Unfortunately, the bosses of the elves are a different matter. They are much stronger, and one of them just warps most of the black bulls away, including the building they're in, to what she calls the world of dreams. And so while she's fighting the ones that got warped over there, the rest of them who weren't are going to have to deal with the elf-possessed Gauche, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and his little sister, who's also an elf. And apparently the elves who possessed them were presumably related as well, and are very good at working together. The little sister, turns out, has light magic to complement his mirror magic. So it'll be tough. But I think once they eventually beat him and de-brainwash him, then I think the whole gang will be together again. So that'll be kind of neat. Is Food Wars, chapter 289. And so I was excited to read this chapter because I thought, okay, we're going to see just how much the food that someone made is worth. But it turns out we don't get to find out because the judge was actually running low on money. She didn't expect as many chefs to pass as they did, so she just gives Soma all that she has and runs off to withdraw more money. And obviously that does not satisfy him because he wants to know how he stacked up against Tsukasa. And also, he earned it, but whatever. As a bit of a compensation prize, a bit later we see him eating some food from the store. He's like just nabbed a popsicle. And he's talking to Tsukasa about he doesn't know what the prize of this whole thing is. Tsukasa points out that it was in the invitation form, but Soma just didn't read it. And so the judge is actually very frustrated at the fact that he doesn't know and doesn't seem to care because she says it's the most prestigious award that any competition could possibly give. It's becoming the personal chef of the WGO's bookmaster. And Soma says, "Well, how is that a big deal?" And she says, "He's the highest food critic that there is in the world. Chefs pay to have him rate their dishes." And Soma still doesn't seem that interested. Says, "Well, I guess if it comes to Yukihira, then that'll be okay because that's what I care most about is serving customers at my restaurant. And you can't really do that if he's living with this bookmaster guy." Far ahead in the competition, Asahi is still trying to put the moves on Erina, but considering what he did to her before, she is now much more resistant to his advances. Yeah, good for her. before he was charming. Now it just comes off as obnoxious. Um, and I think in large part just in an attempt to try and draw our interest, he starts musing about uh, his life story, how he got to where he is. Apparently, his mom was abusive, and she was an alcoholic too long, and so he got to live in an orphanage. Um, and it just so happens that at the orphanage where he lived, Joichiro would sometimes cook there as a charity thing. He would, I guess, whenever he was in America, he would cook at various uh, orphanages, which is neat. And so Asahi formed a strong bond with him. Eventually, came to think of him as his parent because he never knew his dad. I would assume his dad died or got out of Dodge when he found out how crazy the mom was. But anyway, um, they spent a lot of time together, and Joe taught him a lot about cooking and stuff. But then eventually, uh, his wife died, and so he told Asahi that he had to stop traveling the world because, before, whenever he would go on a trip, he could, Soma would still have his mom to look after him, but now that she was gone, then, he can't, so he has to stop. And Asahi became resentful at the fact that the only parent figure that he's ever had was gone, and that, I guess, kind of just led him to be the glory-seeking, desiring to surpass Soma and become the best chef ever person that he is today. Um, although once story time is over, he immediately switches gears back to asking about honeymoon moon locations, which kind of ruins the whole thing. If you want it to seem sympathetic, then uh, you know, play it up a little more. But so it's not entirely clear how much of the backstory was true. In fact, it's entirely possible that all of this could be made up, just like his Suzuki persona. But I'd wager a fair bit of it is accurate. It seems to fit the attitude he's shown. So the chapter ends as the second gate opens, and I'm assuming that from now on in the competition, it's going to be mostly straight cooking duels. Uh, the eccentric stuff, I imagine, will be over now. And next up was Dr. Stone, chapter 84, and so everybody's gathered together, and it's a huge crowd, huger than anyone has ever seen in the Stone world. And so Senku tells everyone who hasn't gotten the full memo and everything. Okay, so 3,700 years ago, blast light turned us all into stone. We don't know who did it, why it happened, or if it might happen again. So we need to figure things out by journeying to the other side of the Earth. And he doesn't mention that they have to hope that whatever caused it is still there, but that would probably depress people. Um, so Kohaku asks, "How are we going to get there?" And Senku says, "We're going to cross the ocean." And and then Yuzihira sneaks up behind him and just puts a pirate hat on his head that she crafted together. Which she says that she wanted to set the mood. It was adorable. And so he says, yeah, we're making a boat." Once he regains his composure, because he was kind of surprised by that. And so the people of Ishigami Village are all actually delighted because they've made boats. That's a thing that they do. They're by the sea, so they go out and fish and stuff. So this is for once something that they actually know a good bit about. And Senku says, "Well, yeah, I mean, I know a lot about the mechanics behind everything and stuff. I'm not a shipwright, so it's not like I could, pilot the thing. So it's a good thing that we got you guys then." And so Magma decides, hey, if I can make an impressive boat, then then I can become the leader now. Finally, I can prove that I am a worthy leader, and I can take over the position of chief. And actually, while he's working on his design, Mantle says, "Hey, why don't you just kill Senku now that Tsukasa is no longer an issue?" But Magma by now has grown as a person, has come to realize, nah, we need Senku, and it'll be wrong to just kill him. He's important to us, so if I'm going to become the leader, I'm going to do it non-violently, which is cool. After some time, they present their designs. Agma made one, Senku made one. Yo actually also made one, but he assumed that, oh, these people are primitive, it's not like they can make anything useful. But he just makes a raft. That's it, and assumes that that's better than they come up with, which was obviously very arrogant of him. Is quite nice looking. Senku says, "Yeah, you guys definitely know." Reveals his own design, and it's just a super complicated schematic thing. You know, it's got all of the cross section lines and the little labels and everything. So everyone's like, "Okay, yeah, we're going with Senku's." And Kaseki, he says, "Oh well, that's amazing. I would love to see it, but it's so complicated that by the time we make it, it'll probably be dead. You know, we need 100 people to." Oh, because you know they got a much bigger group now than they did before. So while everyone's working, Ukyo wonders to himself why there was a competition in the first place, since obviously Senku's design was going to win. And Gen tells him that it's important sometimes to make people feel like they have a choice, even when they really don't. It's something that's used in a number of magic tricks, like a lot of the pick a card ones, or draw something out of a bag or whatever. And in this case, it helped to bring everyone together, because it kind of tricked them into all thinking that it was their decision to follow Senku. Admittedly, I'm sure that a lot of them were going to follow him anyway, but still, it's a neat little mental trick. And Ukyo says, "You know, Gen, it's a good thing that you chose to support Senku early on, or things could have ended a lot differently." And Gen agrees. He says that Senku knows when to rely on others for things, which is important. That's a quality that Tsukasa and Hyoga didn't necessarily have. Actually, just then we see that Senku has sought out the lady that Tsukasa mentioned last chapter. Um, that when they were talking, and Senku asked him about, oh, what did she do? Um, and I can understand why why Senku suspected that she was brought back just for her looks, but based on how that we're seeing her. But no, she was a reporter. She's good with intel and figuring things out and organizing information. And so Senku has come to her and tells her that he needs her help to find someone to captain the ship for the voyage. Next up, My Hero Academia, chapter 200, is bragging about how well Class B has been doing, because the only match that Class A won, they won while Shinso was on their team. And the Class A students are protesting, but Aizawa tells them in a nutshell that, you know what, he's right, because so far his students have been doing better than you guys in the exercise, which they've been coming up with better strategies, and overall have been showing that Vlad taught them better. And All Might, over where he's watching from, admits that he didn't expect things to go this way. I mean, it makes sense as a possibility, but I just kind of assumed that Class A would be doing better. Oh, you have a sweet spot for Class A, and he says, oh, no, I don't. You know, I care for all the students, but actually, even then, while he's saying that, he's thinking about, okay, how's Bakugo gonna do? Um, so yeah, clearly more biased towards the main characters, which just makes sense. Yeah, like, it makes sense for Deku, obviously, but I guess Bakugo also being one of the secret keepers, it would make sense that he's particularly interested in his success as well. And so you find out that, just as I thought at the end of the last chapter, Bakugo's plan boils down to, all you guys follow me and provide backup. Jiro in particular, though, he says that she will be important, particularly because she can listen for the enemy as they approach. And also, as I predicted, we find out that Tokage's quirk is indeed about detaching pieces of herself, except it's actually more extreme than I thought, because in a nutshell, she's like Buggy the Clown. She can split herself into up to 50 pieces and move them through the air at will. Although, she can also move them on the ground, and so she does this to make the sound of a bunch of footsteps to confuse Jiro's hearing so that Class B can get the jump on Bakugo. So that was pretty smart. Obviously, her pieces being little pieces, she can't do that much damage. She just kind of flings all of her pieces at them. But there are so many of them that they're hard to fend off. So Zero decides to make a web of tape to protect them, but then Class B's Bondo covers it all with glue, which traps the team inside of their own defense. So they try to retreat because the web didn't cover the way they came from. But as they're going back, they find out that Bondo has also made some of the pipes in the area sticky. And then Kamakiri, also from Class B, cuts them so that they fall down. And so Sato jumps up. He says that he'll catch them because even if they'll get him stuck, at least the others can get out. But before he can, Bakugo just blows him away. Just So Kamakiri decides, well, okay, but now, if at least if they'd fallen, then you would have had a barrier to keep us out. But now I can come at you, and so he goes for Jiro. He's all smug that, oh, it's not like she can intercept me because I'm really fast. But Bakugo, who has taken All Might's advice to him about saving people being an important thing for here to do, he jumps in the way, kicks her out of the way, and explodes Kamakiri backwards. So he's actually rescuing someone else for once. That was neat. Next up was We Never Learn, chapter 89. So the laptop has been opened, and we find out that the reason Fumino knew the password was because the folder was labeled with star, and she remembered that when she was little, she and her mom talked about hey, when we find a star, what should we name it? So that's how she knew what the password was. And so inside the folder is a video, and instead of what Mr. Furuhashi expected, which was research on solving the Millennium Prize problem, it's actually just a message that she decided to record for her family. In a nutshell, saying that she isn't actually a natural born genius at all. In fact, the Millennium Prize problem was way too hard for her. She didn't know how to do it. She only got to being as good at math as she was because she wanted to look impressive for her husband, or presumably early on her boyfriend or whatever. So this kind of takes him a while to process, but the recording is interrupted by a much younger Fumino reminding her mom that, hey, it's time for us to go out and see if we can find a star again. And so the mom says, well, okay, and what are we going to name if we find it? And she says, Reiji, after Daddy. And so there's a fair bit of irony there that, not only is it something that he easily could have known if he'd bothered to take part in conversations that his wife was having with his daughter with his own name. So Fumino leaves him alone to let him think, and humorously we find that Naruyuki has been waiting outside the house, and a policeman's about to arrest him for stalking because he just assumed that that's what he was doing. But so she sorts things out, and then they sit there, and we find out as we go back inside that the video ended with Fumino's mom telling her that she wanted her to find someone who would support her, just like Raiji had supported herself. And so Fumino, as she and Nariyuki sit and talk, she thinks to herself that she definitely has, and then she seemingly falls asleep on his shoulder. But and so he says, yep, she's had a long day. But then she says, no, actually, I'm awake. And there's just this beat of silence. And then she says that if you don't mind, I'd like to stay this way for a little longer. In the end of everything, Reiji decides that he will support his daughter. And we also find out, as a neat little tidbit of information, met with Ms. Yuiga at one point while Fumino was living with her, trying to ask her about, basically to get advice about how he could try and work through his relationship with his daughter, because as it turns out, basically ever since that moment way back when he was in a bad emotional place and hit her, he's basically been regretting that ever since. And so, because he didn't know how to make it up to her, he's just been distant this whole time. And so now we can just hope that he can try and build their relationship anew. Although the chapter ends with I guess his first action as a proper father, talking to Nariyuki and asking, "So, what is the nature of your relationship with my daughter?" So uh, that's obviously a misunderstanding, although not as entirely as it may have been before this chapter. Um, but yeah, this was the first entirely humorous end to a chapter in several weeks now. It's nice to get back to the fun antics and maybe move away from the angst for a little while. Although since Aruka still has her thing going on, there's definitely going to be more angst in the future before the story ends. And actually, I'm not sure. I'm assuming that Rizu's going to have some kind of arc devoted to her. I mean, I know she's had like chapters, maybe a couple chapters at some times, but yeah, I wonder what that's going to be like. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But at writing moments with each of the girls and Nariyuki is good at keeping you on your toes about how the story might end up. Um, kind of hope that it'll be a while yet before it ends up, but even if it does end soon, then we got the anime coming soon, so still would have that to look forward to. So speaking of Raiji, the last chapter in this issue was Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, Chapter 40, in which Raiji Akaba has appeared to Yuya, like he walked up to Yuya and told him, "Hey, give me the Genesis Omega Dragon card," because of course that's something he's going to do. Because of course this story couldn't end yet. There has to be a rival fight at the end. So he thinks that destroying the card would be a waste. He wants to control its power, and Yuya says that, are you crazy? The tragedy that befell our fathers wouldn't have happened if this card weren't a thing. But Reiji counters that in proper hands, you could use its power for good. And Yuya makes an excellent point in return that, are you kidding? No one can control this thing. And then Reiji makes a fairly decent counterpoint that since Adam gave him his third of the Adam factor, he now has 2/3 of that power, so if anyone could possibly control it, it would be him. We find out that apparently Adam made the decision due to scientific curiosity, which is kind of actually really irresponsible, considering, I mean, how long has he been floating in this space-time pocket place because of what happened to the card, and he's gonna advise someone to try and do it again? I don't know. Um, but so Raiji thinks that if we threw away the card, that means throwing away the era we came from, throwing away the chance to understand the mystery and what happened. And so, to that end, he challenges Yuya to a duel. a Yu-Gi-Oh series, and no one ever turns down a challenge, no matter how stupid the terms are. Yuya agrees on the condition that it be an action duel. So, I guess their atom factors react to each other, and a gigantic tree forms where they stand, which I guess is supposed to be like the one where Raiji met Adam. Uh, and I have to admit, this isn't a bad grand final stage, especially if movement is to be involved, because there are branches and stuff. So Yu goes after the first action card on a bird, monster lady summons, but then Reiji just pulls himself up to the branch it's on with his scarf, which is apparently much bigger than it appeared beforehand. I kind of have to wonder if there weren't some minor reality warping involved as a result of the space that they're in or something. And so then Reiji pendulum summons a monster, and then Yuya tries again to get the next one by pole vaulting. And then Reiji stretches out his scarf, rather he bends it, and it turns into a boomerang that cuts the pole out from under Yuya, and so he gets the next card. Yuya is naturally rather ticked off about this, but he's far from out of the game, so he synchro summons Clearwing Fast Dragon, which is just for a moment a little jarring because up until now, he'd only use one of his brother's cards normally if that brother was in control. But it makes sense that he would be able to use it at any time because the cards are all in his deck the whole time. It's just that for some reason none of them bothered to use each other's cards until they were in control. So yeah, that was that chapter. I imagine there's probably maybe 2-3 more chapters left in the series. So yeah, that was all the chapters in the issue. Actually, at the end of the issue, we find out that Dr. Stone is getting an anime in 2019. So that makes sense. It was probably just a matter of time. So that means that Dr. Stone, We Never Learn, and The Promised Neverland are all upcoming series, probably all within the next year. I'm not sure if I will purchase all of them, but I will definitely purchase at least some of them. And also next week we're getting a new Jumpstart, which is typically neat because typically Jumpstarts are interesting. Incidentally, I intend to, if at any point people become interested in this kind of video that I'm putting up, going back and reviewing some of the older Jumpstarts, since I remember really liking some of them, and other than the fact that they are available in the free section, I also have every back issue, so I could go back and find any one of them. But at any rate, this was a rather long one, but it was a rather long issue. So I will see you next time. If you enjoyed my rambling, then please leave a like, and then come back next time and hear me ramble some more.